Namaste. I bow to the divinity within you. As children, we were taught to consciously cultivate nonviolence. Nonviolence not just on the level of action, but also on the level of words, on the level of our speech, and the level of our thoughts. Even as small children, we were taught that if we saw a little critter, a little bug caught in a whirlpool of water, we were to rescue that little bug and give it a chance for life. Peace, nonviolence. Our minds come back to this again and again more consciously in the face of violence. This week, Georgia was in the news again nationally. And unfortunately, this time it was not because record-breaking people voted and voting rights expanded to people who hadn't been voting before. It wasn't because of civil rights legislation. In fact, it was because of the antithesis of this. It was due to a hate crime, anti-Asian hate crime, committed in our own city. Now, what turns someone's mind? You have a baby who's peaceful, full of love, full of joy. Now, how does that baby become one that's violent and commits acts of violence, feels separation from others? It's due to the stress in the nervous system. Now, what can we do to bring about peace? Well, one thing is we can look at peace at 3 different levels. One is peace amongst nations. Second is peace in our communities, in our families, in our workplace, in our neighborhoods, in our city. And the third level of peace, which is actually most primary and is the birthplace of peace in the other 2 sectors, is peace within our mind. Now, just as violence begins with a thought in the mind, peace begins with silence in the mind. What are the things that we can do to inculcate greater and greater peace? First of all, let me begin by sharing that peace is your very nature. Happiness, joy, and peace are your birthright. Just look at a small child. Have you seen a small child? Even when they're cranky, I was staying at someone's house. Their baby stayed up late because we were all staying up late and chatting, and she didn't like to miss anything. The next day, this toddler was cranky. And in between her and pouting, she would keep breaking out in a smile. And it just reminded me that this is our very nature. It's our nature to be happy. It's our nature to be full of love. It's our nature to be peaceful. Every so often, clouds pass through, which creates stress inside. But just as clouds don't change the nature of the sun, they may block the sun, they may cover the sun, but they don't stay permanently and they don't change the nature of the sun. Just like that, stresses pass through us, but they don't change who we are, our very core, our very nature. So what can we do to bring peace on the level of the mind? Well, as a meditation teacher for the Art of Living Foundation, I have to say meditation. Because meditation works at a fundamental level at affecting instant and ongoing developmental changes in the body, mind, physiology to create greater and greater sense of peace. And how is this done? By simply eliminating stress. Now, when does stress happen? Stress happens when we feel this feeling of separation between us and other people. When that feeling of them and me comes, that is ego, right? And that is also a cause of stress. Stress also happens when we have too much to do and not enough time or energy to take care of it. Now, what can we do here? Well, you could possibly do a little bit less. Sometimes it's not always feasible. Our boss may not appreciate us doing less. We can't really change time, but we can make a definite difference in our energy levels. And when we make a definite difference in our energy levels, things that we would otherwise find stressful do not stress us out so much. So how can we do this? Now, how many of you have sat to meditate but then found that your mind went everywhere? It's a very common experience, isn't it? Because it's a tendency of the mind to wander. It goes to the past, it goes to the future. Oh, I have to take the clothes out of the washing machine, put them in the dryer. Oh, I haven't sent that email yet. What am I going to have for breakfast? What will I make for lunch? The mind has this constant tendency to vacillate from the past to the future. Now, what can we do to bring our breath? Sorry, I just gave away the answer. What can we do to bring our mind to the present moment? Is awareness of the breath. And breath is also that powerful tool that we have to eliminate stress. Now, I'm told by a scientist friend of mine that about 200 forms of stresses, what did she call them? Negative particles are released every time we exhale. This is amazing, isn't it? When you breathe in, you bring in energy, and when you breathe out, relaxation happens with every breath. It's this inbuilt mechanism. And breath is such a powerful tool to eliminate stress in our life. Now, when you eliminate stress, what is left? We're left with our very nature, which is to be happy, which is to be loving, which is to be at peace. Would you like to learn some breathing techniques to help you manage the mind through the breath? So this one is very good for anxiety, panic attacks, when you feel that your heart is palpitating really fast, when you get really worried or caught up in the mind. It happens, right? You know, so often when our mind is caught up in something, we tell ourselves, okay, I need to stop thinking about this. I need to stop worrying about this. Or I'm not going to let this upset me anymore. And how often has that worked for us? Because the truth is, it's very hard for us to control the mind with the mind. It just gets more entangled. And we know this from our experience that we've attempted again and again, I won't let this upset me. And yet again and again, we're right back where we started. But with the breath, we can make a definite change in the mind. Now, let's look into this breath a little bit more. What is the first act of life? It's to take a breath in, right? We took a breath in and then we started crying. And then everyone around us started laughing and celebrating. And our very last act of life will be that final breath out. And then others will be crying and we'll be laughing and celebrating. In between this first breath in and that last breath out, our entire life takes place. Yet we've never taken the time to look into it. There's so many secrets in the breath which can reveal so much to you about your own mind. The breath is that vehicle between the outer world of noise and activity and the inner world of silence. The breath is that vehicle between looking at this outer world and getting lost in this outer world and discovering a very powerful, dynamic world inside. Discovering more about who we are. Who am I? What am I? What is my purpose here? What am I here to do with this life? Those answers can come to us through this vehicle of the breath. Now, in the Art of Living Breathing Meditation workshop, we actually teach a practice called sky breathing meditation, which is a dynamic form of breath which enables you to go inward in a very easy way. It's dynamic, yet gentle, and so effective in helping us go through all those vacillations of the mind, move right past them, and come to a deep meditative space. Now, this breath of ours, we've been doing it our entire life, but to what extent have we looked into it? Usually we notice our breath when we run out of it, isn't it? You've walked up several flights of stairs and, oh my, and then we realize I'm out of breath. Or when you can't breathe. Allergy season is upon us in Georgia, and when you have trouble breathing, you remember your breath, isn't it? But this breath is connected with every thought, every emotion that we have. There is a corresponding rhythm of the breath. Have you noticed? What happens to your breath when you get angry? Yes, it becomes short and shallow and heavy. No need to do it now. And what happens when we're sad? Heavy exhalation, very little inhalation. During lockdown, have you reached out to a friend and said, so I just wanted to check in and see how you're doing? And your friend responds, I'm fine. The moment you hear that heavy exhalation, that sigh, you know that things are not quite fine and that you need to probe in a little bit deeper and check in again. Now, when you're excited, the breath comes in very quickly and there's very little exhalation then. Have you seen when children come to us and they're very excited about something, and then this happened, and then did you see the rainbow, and then they talk like that. And when we're happy, the breath is light and nourishing and full. Now, every thought, every emotion has a corresponding rhythm in the breath. We've already established that it's very difficult for the mind to control the mind. But now knowing that every thought, every emotion has a corresponding rhythm in the breath, by changing the rhythm of your breathing, you can completely transform how you're feeling. So if you're feeling angry, just stopping and taking some deep breaths in and out can completely change your inner state. And that is true with any emotion that you may wish to alter. And I'll be sharing with you a breathing technique that you can actually use. So shall we look into that right now? Okay. So in this breathing practice, we will breathe in through the nose, but then out through the mouth, puffing up the cheeks and blowing out as if you're blowing out bubbles in that ring, that soapy ring, and you blow bubbles out. And as you slowly breathe out, a bubble forms, right? Or as if you're breathing out through a straw. So it looks like this. Are you doing it with me? So let's all do it together. Now, every time you exhale, just feel that the breath is going a little bit further out into the atmosphere. So let's take a long breath in through the nose. Open your mouth into a small circle and then slowly exhale. Let's continue doing this a few more times. And relax and open the eyes. So you can do the straw breath whenever you feel that you're getting anxious, when your heart is palpitating, when you're overthinking. It's also good for blood pressure, but you only want to do it about 5 or 6 times, and that is sufficient. 5 or 6 breaths at a time, and you can do this 2 or 3 times a day without any problem. Now, what can we do to create more expansion, more peace within ourselves and in the world around us? Have you noticed that there's no such thing as peace without acceptance? Acceptance is the key to peace of mind. When you look at a situation that's bothering you, I bet you'll notice that there's a lack of acceptance somewhere in there, whether it's with a family member or a situation at work or a situation in the house, whatever it might be. There's some dissension going on in the mind. Now, what do I mean by acceptance? Do I just mean, okay, let everything be however it is, it doesn't matter? So what if my family throws all the wet towels on the floor every day? So what? I just need peace. No, that is not acceptance. The acceptance that I'm talking about is a dynamic state. It's not a passive acceptance. Now, look at what happens in your mind when you're not in acceptance. Just think of someone right now whom you have trouble accepting. You can close your eyes. Think of someone who pushes your buttons you have trouble accepting. And relax. Did you notice what happens inside? You start feeling tense, you get agitated, angry, annoyed. Now, close your eyes and think of someone whom you can accept unconditionally. Notice the peace, the warmth, the feeling of love that comes in. And open the eyes. Now, in which mind frame would you like to live your life? In acceptance, right? Now, any decision that we take, any action that we take from that space of non-acceptance, have you noticed what happens? Don't we regret? Don't we question ourselves? Was I too harsh? Was I not harsh enough? Maybe I should have done this differently. I could have done that differently. So that's why I'm saying first come to a state of acceptance, so that your mind is calm, your mind is clear. And from that calm, clear, intuitive mind, the right action, the right words come forth. And because you're coming from clarity, because you're coming from peace, your words will have greater impact. Your actions will have greater impact. So this is what I mean by dynamic acceptance. First, come to that state of actual peace inside of you, and from there, you'll know what to do. That's one thing. Now, how can we come to that state of peace within? Through meditation. Would you like to do a meditation right now? So, let us sit with our feet, provided you're not driving. Let's close our eyes, sit with our feet on the floor, and our hands relaxed on our knees. The palms can be facing the ceiling. Let's close our eyes. Let's take a breath in and out. Let's take another long breath in. And breathe out from the mouth, making this sound. Another breath in. Let's become aware of the sounds in the environment, whether it's birds chirping inside, crickets, breeze moving through the trees, a clock ticking, voices, whatever it might be. Accept all the sounds in the environment. Now you are in peace with your environment. Let's take a deep breath in and let go. Let us become aware of this physical body. This body is a beautiful gift to us, given with love, by nature, by the divine. Let us love and honor this body that we've been given. Let's become aware of our feet, knees, hips, abdomen, stomach, chest, shoulders, arms, face, and head. Let's become aware of this entire body. Let's take a deep breath in and let go. Now let's become aware of our thoughts. Whether good thoughts or bad thoughts, however they may be, just let them be. No need to reject any thoughts, just let them be. Now you're in harmony with your thoughts. Let's take a deep breath in and let go. Let us become aware of our emotions, pleasant or unpleasant. Just let them be. You are peace. You are love. It's your very nature. Let us become aware of our emotions, our thoughts, the physical body, and the sounds in the environment. Let's take a long breath in and breathe out. And slowly, let's open the eyes. And the final thing I wanted to share about how we can create peace around us. One is through acceptance. Acceptance is easier when we attend to the level of the mind through meditation, which is most primary and is the second way to peace. And the third is get to know someone. Get to know someone in your community who is different from you in some way. Maybe they're from a different part of the world, a different part of the country. They have a different orientation than you do, a different political outlook than you do. Have a conversation with them. A conversation to learn more about them. What shaped them? What perspectives they have? Where they're from? And see if you find more in common with them than different. And only through these ways, or definitely through these ways, and there are many more, of course, we can create a more peaceful society for ourselves and for future generations. Thank you. Namaste.